Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Board Game Buffet podcast, episode number 93. My name is Dean.
And this is Graham.
And Graham, after some technical difficulties, try this again outside and see if it's any better. But as we were going to discuss, you actually had a face-to-face gaming get-together yesterday. And I know that's a rarity for you guys, especially up there where you're under much more severe lockdowns. But was it nice to get back and see other people other than Lela to play games with?
It was. I mean, we have done some online gaming with our group, but nothing quite beats people actually sitting around a table. I don't know what it is. I mean, I spend my days in virtual meetings at work, then we do virtual gaming. The banter just doesn't flow as well online, like when you're doing virtually. I don't know why, but it just seems to work better when you're in person. Nothing against online gaming. I mean, it's been fantastic for when we have been isolated, but given a preference, I would say I'd much rather do face-to-face than online gaming.
No, for sure. There's no doubt about that. It's the, looking people in the eyes across the table, and all that kind of stuff, and just the energy of being in the same room with people. But myself, being someone who has spent the last 2 years out face to face with people for work and everything else, whatever. So I will say that so here, especially, well, I guess in all the US, but in Ohio, there's no more mask mandates, and vaccinations are rolling along. And I know the Columbus Area Board Gaming Society, they had their, I guess, inaugural weekend this weekend. It was all outside under tents. I think they're going to go inside starting next month. But they had a flea market. They were gaming yesterday. I guess they're gaming today. I contemplated driving to Columbus and going to it. And I almost contemplated getting a flea market table. But historically, whenever I make plans like that, it generally gets me deployed and sent on the road. And Dan actually sent me an email or a message on Facebook wanting to know if I had time to get together to play. And I said, well, I got stuff I need to finish up before Monday, and starting Tuesday, I'm eligible to be sent back out. So yes, we can talk about it, but he's almost the kiss of death when it comes to any of that. It's almost a guarantee when I make plans with him that I get sent out. So I don't know if I'm gonna make plans with him or not. So
yeah, it's interesting because when I look at the numbers, so where I am in Ontario, I'm the municipality that's just north of Toronto. So if you know where Toronto is, I'm in York region, or Vaughan, which is right above it. Our region has a first dose vaccine dose of 76%. So 76% of it, eligible adults have had at least their first vaccine. And we're still clamped down more than kind of the rest of the world. I think we are second now for the nation that has the most first doses in arms, percentage-wise. And yet we're still locked down more than anybody else on that list. So it's, in some ways, it's kind of frustrating. In other ways, I guess we see the light at the end of the tunnel, because we are, there's a whole bunch of new stuff coming out. Oh, now the variants are coming out, and if you're not vaccinated, you're more susceptible to the new variants. But having double vaccination greatly enhances your protection against them. So now there's a rush to get a lot of second doses in the arm. So actually, tomorrow morning, I can rebook so I already have a second appointment to get my vaccine, but I can now rebook it to get an earlier appointment. So it's going to be trying to do tomorrow. So maybe by the next time we record, I'll have both shots in my arm, which means that we can then move our gaming inside, as opposed to having to sit in the sweltering weather, all kind of, you're angling the umbrella outside to make sure everybody's in the shade, because then everybody's kind of cramped around trying to angle that umbrella so you're not getting sunburnt.
Well, I hear that if you get like a $1,200 umbrella, they're bigger and they'll cover more people, but you just won't get one.
That's true. We have an umbrella. Yes, there's one or two holes in it, but it's fine.
And with my luck, I'd be right underneath one of the holes. I'd get a sunspot right in my eye all night long, or all day long.
You kind of start at one end of your forehead, and through the entire evening, it just goes across. So you just a sunburn, like just a strip of sunburn across your forehead.
Exactly. That's all right. I mean, at least things are looking better. I know I've seen a lot of social media posts from people across the country, and I guess I don't know if it's been across the world, but definitely across the country where they are, they're able to get back together, and the smiles on their faces and everything kind of tells the story. I mean, that's what it's all about.
And I have a feeling, some of our listeners know that we do a werewolf every month. Uh, Once a month on a Saturday evening, we do a game of werewolf. And I was talking about it with Lella yesterday, that I think this one in June may be the last one, because it was a great way. Most people were confined inside anyway, so why not play werewolf on a Saturday night? Now, if we're all vaccinated, we can get back together on a regular basis. We tend to play on Saturdays, which means werewolf may end. So we shall see.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean,
yeah, this may be our last werewolf game. I mean, it's been fun while we've done it, but I think with everything opening
yeah,
up, it's going to be more difficult for people to commit to a Saturday night, because that's when a lot of people game with friends.
right, right, yeah. I tried to get I tried to get Amy to play a game with me last night, and it yeah, obviously that didn't happen. But and then I told her, because I found a copy of Catan and she wanted to play Catan, and I told her the other day, I said, you do want to play this? I'm like, am I just gonna put this in storage? She's like, no, I do. She's like, just not today. I'm like, okay. So I'm gonna go put it in storage. get this out of my house, and you know, so it's not staring me in the face.
So are you going to buy the 3D Catan for her?
No, it's base Catan, and that's it. I there will be no expansions. That I can almost guarantee. So, well, what anything else going on before we get into the meat of it?
It's funny that you and I have been talking over the last little while about the lack of games coming out.
Mm.
And I was looking at my local game stores even just this morning before I started recording, and I'm going, there's really no games coming out that I'm desperate to play. There's ones coming out that are like on the hotness, which are, I guess, going to be released fairly soon, but I haven't seen them show up in my local game store. Like something like Oath I really want to try, but I'm kind of looking at the games going now and going, kind of what happened to the very heavy games, the very complex games? I know they come out fairly regularly, and maybe they all come in bunches, because it seems to be for sometime last year we got like 3 or 4 heavy games all like within a month or two. I don't remember the last heavy game that's come out in the last several months. So a lot of the games I'm looking at now are kind of lighter, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to spend the money on lighter games. And then there's onesies and twosies, and I think it's because of the pandemic that there aren't the cons. We discussed before, you get a whole bunch of influx of games around Essen and Gen Con and Origins. So I was kind of waiting for that, save up all my pocket money for the day when all the Gen Con stuff hits the stores, and I buy it all, and it's all exciting. Now it's like, well, there's a game this week, and 2 or 3 weeks later, here's another new game. So I'm not getting the same sense of I want it all. It's just I kind of look at the store and go, okay, there's one game I would buy, but is it worth me putting an order in for one game?
Yeah, and I almost think that it feels like most of the heavy stuff that's getting put out right now are all reprints. You got reprints of Ginkopolis, and you got the reprints of the Feld games. Just under different names. I mean, maybe there's a slight twist to it. And I mean, I know there's, like you said, I know there's original heavy games coming out, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of them. A lot of them seem to be reprints. And then I think you take like a company like Capstone. Capstone, for for the last couple of years, was when they put out a game, you figure, okay, that's going to be a heavier game. But now they're kind of all over the board too. With they have lighter stuff coming out. They have, they still do their heavy stuff, but it's not a guarantee that when Capstone comes out with a game now that it's going to be one of those heavier Euro games. You really kind of have to look at it and see, where it's falling as far as weight and even style, because they have their whatever their, I don't know if it's lighter or medium weight kind of line that they have as well. So, we probably talked about this before, but unless it's a splatter, are there that many like publishing companies where if they're coming out with a game, it's for sure going to be a heavier game? There just aren't that many of them anymore. It doesn't seem like, anyways.
Yeah, and I'm wondering whether so. What do you feel about that? When I used to look at What's Your Game, for example, I would buy every What's Your game because they tended to be medium to heavyweight games. And then Loot Island came out. We discussed this, I think, on the last podcast. Loot Island came out, and it's definitely a lighter game. For my mind, it wasn't a Euro game because it was very, kind of that you have to cooperate with other people, and you're trying to read what other people are doing.
Right.
It just didn't feel like their standard heavier Euro game. Now I'm like, when What's Your Game comes out with a new game, it's no longer it's an instant buy. It's okay. Well, let me have a look. Is this their same heavier games that they used to do, or is this a game more like Loot Island or party game or whatever else? And the same thing with Capstone. Capstone used to be an almost maybe not an automatic buy, but I would always look at their games assuming that they're heavy. Now it's like, well, okay, well, is this like a Curious Cargo that they put out, or is this like Haspelneck that they came out with many years ago, which was definitely heavier, or is this some other type of game that they're going to put out? I don't find that there's any, again, beyond Splotter, there's no company that is an instant buy from anymore because everybody seems to be publishing a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and I'm sure their business model probably says, shotgun approach and see if you can get, attract more people into your company than maybe other things sell. But yeah, well, even like What's Your Game? Other than, I guess they're doing a reprint of what, Signori and Nippon or Madeira or one of them. They haven't really produced anything new in a couple years.
Yeah. So do you think with the shotgun approach that we're going to lose the heavy games? Because heavy games, from my understanding, now, if someone's in the industry or has different opinion, I've heard that heavier games just don't sell as well as lighter games. So even something like Food Chain Magnet, it did extremely well for Splotter. But if you compare it to something against like Azul or Century Spice Road, it pales in comparison. Like for every one Food Chain Magnet, there's probably 100 Azuls sold. So if you are getting like What's Your Game, when they find out that their heavier stuff just is not selling as well as the new stuff, or Capstone, are they going to stop publishing the heavier stuff? Because if people aren't buying it in the same quantities as they're buying their other stuff, why publish it?
Yeah, I understand why they do it, because look at it this way. If you're into heavy games, first off, there's many more people into medium weight to lighter games than there are heavy games. We know that. There's a lot of people coming into the hobby, especially over the last couple of years. Now, will that influx of new people continue at the same pace once people can go outside again, whatever? I don't know if it will or if it won't. But if you're a publishing company trying to get a foothold in these, and sink your teeth into these new people coming into the hobby, then I understand why you're doing lighter games and more accessible games. Understand that completely. So I think from a publishing standpoint, if you're doing heavier games, those maybe tend to be gamers that have been around a while. Maybe not. Maybe you jump into the hobby and you're doing the heavy stuff. But I think they also, and I know this sounds bad, but I think they also tend to be more discerning as far as what they like in a game, what they expect in a game. And therefore, you have less room for error when you're creating a heavy game or when you're publishing a heavy game, designing heavy, because I think they're more susceptible to critique and scrutiny. So I get that maybe you're apprehensive of that. And then think about the other thing is that if all those aforementioned things are true, they've been in the hobby a while. Are they kind of like us where, yes, you may be jonesing for a new heavy game, but do you need every new heavy game that comes out? So how many are they buying?
Yeah.
Versus the people new into the hobby who are just like, oh, I want it all, give it all to me and I'll figure out what's good or bad and sell, whatever. So I, not being on the publishing end, I don't know if any of those things or all of those things, man, my hair is really getting, I might have to get a ball cap. I guess that's the downside of being outside. Hmm. Anyways, yeah, I just I don't know what goes into their planning and stuff,
Yeah.
but think about it also designer wise. I mean, other than Feld's pretty consistent with what his designs are. But you know, Rosenberg, you don't know if it's going to be heavy light. Pfister, you don't know if it's going to be heavy light. Um, Martin Wallace, other than reprints, I don't know if he's even doing anything really new.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, there aren't, you know, and then you got the Lucianis in that group, and you got the Tertzies and stuff. But I don't. I mean, would you consider Tekhenu and Tuantansuyu? I mean, are those heavy games or are those more medium weight going towards the heavy side?
And okay, it's opening up a whole other can of worms of what's considered a heavy game. So
I understand.
For our top 5 list today, I was looking through some of my heavier games, and I noticed that Twanton Sinew is rated, it's a 4+ on weight. I didn't think it warrants that difficulty. For me, it's like a 3.5 to 3.7, somewhere around there, but it's rated like a 4.1 or 4.2 or something like that. And there's a lot going on, and I think that's where the complexity comes in, because Twanton Sinew, what you're doing is fairly easy. You're taking a meeple, you're placing it on the board, and taking the action of the meeple that you're placing. Yeah, and you have to match colors. The complexity comes into where you're going to place it, because it costs you differently depending on where on the board you're placing it, which tier you're placing it on, how far away from your priest you're placing it on, what else is around it. Can you get combos that if I place, you know, a blue one here, is it connected to another blue one, so I can get, you know, double the bonus, whatever else. I think that's what people are considering complex. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm kind of looking at the complex games now going, I don't know, am I setting my bar of complex games too high? Or whether it is, like you said, with more people coming into the hobby that are new to it, then I would say yes. This is like the second game, if you went from Catan to Twanton Sinew, that ramp is huge. But with you and I kind of being more discerning, and I'm sure several of our listeners have played more games than we have. Do you consider that Twanton Sinew a heavy game? But I think one of the problems that you get to is, if you are new to the hobby and you saw Twanton Sinew at a 4 something, and you're used to playing Catan, I don't know what Catan's rated, like a 1.52, whatever it is. Are you willing to make that jump? Some people are. Some people are very happy to jump in the deep end. Like my first real purchased hobby game that I bought was Arkham Horror 2nd edition. So I just kind of leapt into the deep end with that. But I think from a publishing point of view, if that weight is going to scare people away from your game, and like you said, the people like us are more, you said discerning, I'm saying picky and demanding from what we want from a game, I would say that it doesn't make as much financial sense to do it. And I think a reason why, when we look back at some of the heavier games, like we were mentioning, What's Your Game, like Inkopolis being reprinted, Madeira being reprinted, I think those were originally printed at a time when there wasn't the same volume of publishers out there and the same volume of people buying them. So you could build your company going to a specific group of people. Like we are now, Splotter still does it, but we are Capstone Games. We publish heavier Euro games. 10, 15 years ago, that's fine. But now, with so many people in the hobby and so many publishers looking after games, you're going to get lost in that. So you need to be publishing a bit of everything. And I'm just worried that the number of, on the heavier end of the scale, you're going to get less and less of those games published, because it's just easier to, not so much easier. I'm not saying that designing simple games is easy, because we've played an awful lot of simple games that are absolute crap. But it's probably a higher probability that you're going to make a game that more people enjoy, that's lighter than heavier. because I think that heavier pool is smaller, and whether you call it discerning or picky, then your subgroup of that group that really enjoys your game is going to be smaller than if you do a light game when you have 10 times the amount of people. Even if the percentage is the same, you're getting more people to play your game.
Yeah, and I was thinking about when you were talking, it seemed like back in the day, use that phrase, um, that some designers only publish games with certain publishers. That was their publishing house, and I don't necessarily feel that that's the case anymore, because a publisher or designers are going to bounce around, and I get why, because publishers only publish so many games in a year, and if you're a designer, you don't want to be stacked up 3 years down the road, before your game comes out. And then I think that because there's so many publishers, that they're going to some of these, some designers and some bigger name designers saying, I don't care what it is. Give us something that's been in the drawer for 10 years that you don't think is, very good. We'll tweak it or whatever. Give us something that, if you can design something in 30 days, that'd be great. So again, I guess it's a fortunate place for the hobby to be in, where there's probably so many people in it that the mass appeal, or the ability to appeal to a larger group, is there for them, and they can sell more games. And and let's face it, I mean, unless they're going to bling out a game, lighter games are generally probably cheaper to produce. You probably don't have nearly as many components. And not saying that there's anything wrong. I mean, there are some really good lighter games out there. I mean, what's the one you played not that long ago, the Lions of Lydia?
Yeah.
I mean, you seem to really enjoy that, and that looks like the production was pretty good in it, but it didn't have a ton of components, so it probably was, it was all said and done, it's probably less than a $30 price point for that game. That's going to appeal to a lot of families and a lot of gamers, because of that. So I guess it's, yes, we individually may bemoan the fact that it doesn't seem like there's a lot of heavy games coming out, but then again, we also will sit there and say, I've got plenty of games to play. I don't necessarily need anything. Just, we want what we want, and then we feel like we're being excluded when, 2 out of 50 games coming out are ones that are more appealing to us. Yeah, that's a good problem to have, I guess. But
yeah, it is a good problem, and I think it's the we talk about it in the old days now, and I don't want to come off as saying back in my days it was so much better, but I think with fewer publishers back in the day, and you tended to get the people that were like, I see a lot of people in the hobby now that have are playing games in university and even high school and whatever else. Maybe it was just where I grew up, I never saw that. So the people that tended to be in board gaming were like the miniature war gamers, or the Avalon Hill group, which are heavier games. So when they moved over to the hobby board games, it's saying, well, there's already a large group of people that like these heavier games, so we will design heavier games. And unfortunately, that excludes people new to the hobby, because that learning, you have to be very dedicated to learn one of those games. And maybe now that there's a much larger group of younger people coming into the hobby, which is great because it's invigorating, but it's like, oh, there's this huge new market in board gaming of people that are new to the hobby. So let's design games for them, which means before you had everybody focusing on us old folkies who have been through the lighter games and want something, medium to heavyweight. But now there's more people in the younger, and when I mean younger, I mean newer to the hobby.
Right.
There's more opportunity to get your games to them than there is now to the people that like the more complex games. Because honestly, as you said before, a complex game could take you. I played Dominant Species Marine last night, and it took 2.5 hours with 4 players. I'm not going to play that every day, but Lel and I play quicks after almost every dinner, because it's quick. We're done in 10-15 minutes, and it's great. So I can see why I don't need every game to come out as heavy, because I just physically don't have the time to play them. So I can definitely see the benefit of it. I'm just worried that with the marketing, with the industry being more focused on making money now, which is what all businesses are, the way you make money is you sell the product to the largest segment of your population, which is the people who enjoy the lighter to midweight games, or people new to the hobby. And unfortunately, it means that people that only want to play heavy games, that market is dwindling.
Yeah, but it's kind of like cars. The big car companies are going to produce the mid-range to compact cars. Or I think pickup trucks are probably the number one sellers here in the United States. But the high-end sports cars or the high-end luxury cars, there's those people that love those cars. But you know, unless you specifically um, design, or if you're a Lamborghini or if you're a Porsche company and that's all you design, then that's what you're known for. But even Ford, who may have some high-end sports cars or luxury cars, they're not producing them in the quantities of the other ones because the demand's not there for them, and they need to go where the money's at. So yeah, I mean, boo-hoo for us.
Yeah.
We don't get exactly what we want, but like I said, there's so many things that you can try within the hobby, or that you can just go back and play, or whatever. That it's I guess it's a nice problem to have.
Yeah. And I mean, I still really like midweight Euros because they're easy to get to the table. They're done in an hour and a half, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're much easier to get to the table. They're much easier to explain to people. People's their enjoyment, because when people are learning a game, they're kind of frustrated. They don't understand what's going on, and then it may click later on. Well,
Right.
that time to click in a midweight Euro is significantly less than a heavyweight Euro. So their enjoyment happens earlier in their gameplay, which is nice to see. So for me, I would like to see more midweight Euros, like really good midweight Euros, and the occasional much heavier Euro every once in a while. I'm seeing maybe my taste tend to go a little on the, even when I say midweight Euros, maybe my midweight Euros heavier than the mass majority of people.
Right. Right.
So,
Well, speaking of all these heavy games that we love to play and that we turn our nose up at the other stuff, I guess we should talk about our first bites or our recent plays, because I'm sure there's got to be at least four heavy games we're going to talk about.
I only play heavy games now, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I definitely got a couple of super, super heavy games to the table this last week. So, do you want to go first? Want me to go first? Actually, before we do this, I'm going to, for those that are watching the video, prepare yourself for a little shaking. Got to move my table up because this freaking sun is hitting me right in the face. So hold on. Well, let me see if I can get myself out of this predicament that I'm in. I'm stuck.
The joys of live video, well, not live video, but recording the podcast. See, when we used to only do audio, this is the stuff we would cut out. So you never got a chance to see.
Well, I still cut it out on the audio portion. It's just the people that have to watch it in video have to see it all. So, okay, the shifting sun is out of my face now.
Okay, so why don't you go first then for your first bite?
Okay, so the one of the first games that I played this last week was it's a game I've had for quite some time, and it's one that it plays up to 4 players, plays 2 to 4 players, and it's a little tiny box. It's a tile manipulation game, and that is called Kodinka. Kodinka came out 2012. It's pretty light. It's under a 1.5, but it also plays very fast. Plays about 30 minutes. It has a really well. I was gonna say it has a really nice production. It has half of the game is really nicely produced. The little bakelite tiles are really nice. They're nice colors. They have there's 2 sides to them. One is they all have a design on them. So there's purple, green, blue, red. Each player picks a color that they're going to be. And then there's a design on each one. And then the back side is a gold style of design. The front side is a white style. What you're doing in this game is the game gets set up the same way every time you play it. It has a preset tile setup. And then you are going to spend your game trying to manipulate your tiles into certain patterns. And the patterns could be a combination of white side, gold side. They could be all white, all gold. And then you have four. Each player gets four base patterns that they have to match. And it could be one's going to be diagonal, one's going to be like four corners, one's going to be all in a row, and then the other one's going to be four, like basically like a small square. And the variation is going to be, again, whether they're white or gold, so not everyone's going to have the exact same pattern, but the overall patterns are going to be the same. So everyone's going to have one of each of those. And then they are also going to get a couple of special cards. I think they're called spirit cards. And they're going to have, you get three of these and you can use them on your turn. You kind of spin them to do something special. You can either manipulate a row of tiles and move your tile. I think it has to be your tile. Could be someone else's. I had to check from one end all the way to the other end and shift them all down. You could do it where you rotate the tiles by 90 degrees or 180 degrees. And then there's on the backside of those, there's like it'll show the tiles like all out there. And it has an arrow pointing, and it'll tell you you're going to flip these and you're going to gold, you're going to flip these to white. And so it allows you to change the board up. I don't necessarily, I mean, the rules say that, that's one of the cruxes to the game is knowing when to use these cards and when not to use these cards. I don't know. I mean, I only played a 2-player, maybe at a 4-player game, it's different. It plays fast. It is definitely one that I played this a long time ago when it first came out, and then just played it again recently, and definitely did not enjoy it as much as I played it back in 2012. But it's one that is simple to explain. It's simple to play, and it does play fast. But I was pretty bored during the majority of the game, especially when you're playing 2 players. Now, there is a rule that says you cannot immediately on your turn change what someone else just did. Because on your turn, you're basically going to get 3 choices. You're going to move one of your tiles. You can switch places either with a tile adjacent to it or diagonally to it. So you just move them, and then you can flip a tile. It could be one you just moved. It could be any other tile out there. So you can flip it to gold or white. So you can move and flip. You can flip and flip. And I think there's another choice. I don't think it's move and move. I don't know what the third one is. I mean, so your choices are pretty simple. And then, of course, you have your little spirit cards. At any point in time when you get your tiles in one of those 4 configurations that you're looking for, you announce it, you show everyone that your little card that says this is what I need, and then you take that card and you place it out of play to, so because you've already completed it. And then the first person to get all 4 of their configurations done wins the game. 2 players, it's pretty simple. It's pretty easy to get stuff done because you're only, you can see what the other person's kind of doing. I mean, they kind of telegraph a little bit with the pattern that they're going for. And there's for a simple game, there is a lot to take that in it because you're making a decision. Okay, do I want to do this or do I want to mess them up? I think they're going for this. But at the same time, you can't just constantly mess with them because you need to complete your own patterns as well. Again, it's light, it's simple, it's fast. I just think it's kind of boring. So that's Kodinka. It will more than likely be on the in the flea market in the fall.
Yeah, I have not played Kodinka since I reviewed it. I'll probably say about 7 years ago. I gave it a 5.5. I was not impressed with the game. It sounds like you and I are the same feeling about it. It was re-implemented by something called Clax, which is set in a Discworld universe, which I liked a little bit more. But yeah, I had the same feeling you did. Is it just didn't grab my attention. It's you kind of played it and kind of went, okay, let's move on to something else. Not like, oh, let's try this again. I'm going to try a different strategy. I'm going to try and outsmart you this time. It's just like, okay, well, whatever. So
Yeah, and I think it's because they're, everyone's got the four same configurations kind of that they're going for. I mean, yes, gold, white, ooh ah. So you kind of know what people still have to do, especially in a two-player game. It's much easier to track that. And I just think that because it's always the same setup, and kind of, okay, they haven't done their diagonal one yet, so let me try to stop them from doing that. I mean, and again, I'm sure that's what it was designed to be. It was designed to be a very light, very accessible, very easy and quick game to play. So yes, on those things, it did it. It's just not a fun game, at least in my opinion. Like I said, the production quality, the tiles are cool.
Yeah.
The box is great. It's a magnetic box, but those little circular cards, I mean, what a cheap, I mean, it's like they spent all their money like, oh crap, we still have a couple of components to produce.
Yeah.
I mean, mine are like so warped, and they're even kind of a plastic coating to them, but man, they are thin and they stick together, and yeah, it's like they needed another $5 in their budget to make those a little better. But anyways, that's Kodinka.
Okay, so my first game, we said we're all doing heavy games. So the first one I'm going to talk about is called Smiles and Daggers. It's a weight 1.0.
Is this a splatter game?
It's not a splatter. I think it's a splatter sister company.
Oh, 1 point. So it's even lighter than mine. All right, perfect.
It's put out by Gyochi Unity. And it is, now they say it re-implements a classic dilemmas in game theory, and I don't think they got it quite right, actually. So what I think they're referring to is the prisoner's dilemma. So do you know what the prisoner's dilemma is?
Yeah, we used to
did
it like in psychology classes.
Yeah, so just in case people don't know, prisoner's dilemma is you have two people and you say there's let's say a pot of gold or a pot of money in the middle of the table, and you say, okay, secretly you have to decide whether you're both going to agree to share the money, in which case you basically split the pot 50-50. Or you can do the opportunity to steal all the money. If you steal the money and the other person cooperates, you get all the money. If you both steal, no one gets any money. So it's what do you do? So that's where I think this game, the launching point for this game was that idea. So the game is played with, I think the minimum is 3 players, 3 to 6 players. Everybody has the same set of cards. You have 3 knights, 2 queens, and a king. Each card you have is on the face side. There's actually 2 faces on it. So one side of the face card is Smile, so it's a light side, and the other one's the Daggers, which is the dark side. On your turn, you're going to pick someone. So I'm going to say, Dean, let's cooperate. Let's do cooperate, and we'll get coins. Now, each of your cards is going to be worth a different number of coins. Your knights are worth 0 coins, queen's worth 1, knights, and the king is worth 2. So I can say, let's cooperate. And you say, sure. So we put down our cards with the light sides facing each other. And we're like, okay, we're going to do this. Now, everyone else who's not involved. So if we were playing a 4-player game, so Dean and I have our cards face down. We then go to the person to the left and say, Lela, do you want to bid on this? And with her knight cards, she can play it on how she thinks we've bid. So she can bid on one of us. So she could put the light side, her light side on mine, which means she thinks that I played the light side. She could put it, the dark side on Dean, saying, I think Dean played the dark side. You can put it in between the cards to say, I think both of you played light or both of you played dark. Or you can turn it sideways to say, I think Dean played good, Dean played dark and Graham played light. Then we go around to the next person. They get to bid as well. And you don't have to bid. Then you reveal the cards. If we both played light, then we get the number of coins on the card. So if I played a king, I get 2 coins. If Dean played his queen, he gets 1 coin. If one of us played the dark side, then you kind of go through a rock, paper, scissors of, could Dean kill me? So let's say I played the white queen, so the light side of my queen card, and Dean played a king, but on the dark side. So neither one of us is going to get any coins. But the king kills the queen kills the knight, and the knight kills the king. So it's like a circular thing. So since Dean played a dark king, I played a white queen. He kills my queen. My queen is now out of the game. I can no longer use my queen card. It's put back in the box. So if you both play light, you get coins. If at least one of you plays dark, you have the option to kill the other person. Then you look at the bids. You look at who was correct in their bidding, and you have to be a 100% correct. So if Lella said that she thought both of us were going to play the light side, and I played light and Dean played dark, Lella loses her bid. And she actually loses her card. Again, out of the game. If she's 100% correct, then she gets coins based on how many guesses she had. So if she just bid on me, she would get 1 coin. If she bid on both of us using a single card, she was going to get 2 coins. So the active player has the opportunity to get a maximum of 2 coins, and the people betting on it can get a maximum of 2 coins. But if you're ever wrong on the bidding, you lose that card, and you can only ever bid with your knights. You go around the table, and then next person takes a turn, and they will pick someone to do it with, and you keep on going around the table until someone has 11 coins. It was fun for the first little while, but then it got to the point where Jason had, I think 6 or 7 coins or something like that, and was like, well, we're not going to go in. No one, the other 3 people aren't going to ask you to join in. And even if we asked you to join in, we know you're going to lie. So you're out of everybody's thing until it's your turn, and then you get to pick someone to do it. And even if you pick someone to do it, they're never going to put their light card down, because we can't afford you to get any more coins, or else you're going to win. So the only way you can win is by betting. And I can't stop you from betting on the round that I'm involved with. Like if Dean and I are if I say, Dean, let's both play positive, let's play negative, I can't stop Jason from playing his card. He can bid or he can bet on the outcome no matter what. So it was kind of a interesting idea that once I finished playing it, it was like, okay, that was fun. But it's a game where you are lying to people's faces. That's inherent in the game. Dean, let's get some coins. Let's both pay light. Aha, I play my dark card. I kill your card. Now you've lost your king because I played my dark knight. Again, that's fun for a while. And Lella said, after we finished playing it, she enjoyed it. She said it was fine, but she says it feels more like a beer and pretzels type game. You're going to enjoy it more the more alcohol you imbibe.
All right.
And I said, if you need alcohol to enjoy a game, is the game any good? She goes, well, that's not what I meant. When you get people to loosen up, then it kind of works better in that environment. So if you have like a bunch of people that are, really old friends that are used to like ribbing each other and, playing these style of games, it's going to work. It's not a style of game I would pull out at, oh, this is the first time I'm meeting you. Let's play Smiles and Daggers. It doesn't work in that environment. You need a group of people that's very comfortable with each other, because there is an awful lot of lying, and the whole game is really about backstabbing people. Like I said, it was okay. I've played it once. I can see it pulling out maybe a couple more times to play with like different groups of people, but this is not one that's going into my rotation, because it just became uninteresting. And you can only backstab people so many times before people are just going to assume that you're backstabbing. So you can no longer, you've lost the edge of being able to predict what other people are doing, because it's like, well, they think I'm going to backstab, therefore I might as well just backstab then.
Well, and it sounds like, so you were talking about how Jason was kind of farther ahead, so no one wanted to engage with him. And I thought, well, that means 2 other people can kind of collude and say, hey, the only way we're going to do catch him is if we both agree to play light, so we can get coins. But if he can bet, then he knows that's what you're going to do. He's still going to get coins by betting on it. So it kind of takes that strategy out, which I guess is somewhat interesting, but it sounds like it lasts way too long.
Yeah.
Which I guess the first the first half of the game, or the first few turns of the game, sound like it's just pure guessing. And then
Yeah.
once cards get eliminated, you have a little more information. Okay, well, I know they can't play. They've lost. Three of their light cards, or they've lost their queen and their king. Are you betting on specific, like
No, just lighter,
like
dark.
you're just betting light and dark, and you can only ever lose light cards, right?
Well, the cards are,
Unless you both play dark.
yeah. So if I played dark, you played light, then we go through the well, if one of us played dark, you go through the rock, paper, scissors.
Right.
So if I played light, you played dark, you see whether your dark kills my light. If we both played dark, then we see which one kills which.
Right. So you can lose dark cards.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds interesting, but it sounds like it goes way too long. And it seems to me like it's interesting to the standpoint of playing it once. And I don't know. I mean,
And for example, so I think I was the last player of the first round. So I went to Lella and said, okay, why don't we both put our kings down? We both get 2 coins. She said, okay. She put her light king down. I put my dark knight out. Flip it over. She lost her king. She lost her card that gets her 2 points. And I was able to eliminate everyone else's kings. So no one had any kings left. If you also lose your queen, then you do have 2 queens. So you only have 1 king that gets you the two coins, and you have 2 queens left.
mm-hmm.
But we got down to a point when I think everybody only had 3 cards left in their hand, because I was able to, either through bad bidding or me being able, or someone being able to backstab. So you're left with like a knight or 2 knights and a queen. It's like, okay, well, what do you do? And light cards can't eliminate light cards. So if you both play queens, dark queens, they don't eliminate each other. You just basically, no one wins. You just rounds over. So it just seemed to be, it became more about the bidding, the side stuff, the Dean and I playing our cards face down, if we're both going to play white or black. It's the game was really, but the other people are bidding on it. Because if we have both lost our kings, and let's say we both agree to put down queens, then you and they're both white, I get a coin, you get a coin. If someone bid or bets that we're both going to play white cards, they're going to get 2 coins. They're better off than the active players.
Right.
So then it just becomes, are the non-active players going to trust what the active players are saying? And does it make sense? And at some point it's like, well, I need coins. Like, I'm so far behind. I need coins. I have to play a light card. You also need coins because you have to catch up to Jason. So you're going to play a light card. But then that means Jason's going to get more coins than we can get because he knows we have to get coins. So it was sort of, the idea is interesting. And when you kind of think about it at a high level, it sounds like it would be a good idea. The actual implementation, it was just sort of like, well, how do I stop giving you coins? So the only way I can stop giving you coins, well, it doesn't work either. So how do I stop you from getting coins? If you think I need coins, then you know I'm going to play light. But if you're the non-active player, then you know I'm going to play light because I need coins. If I need to catch up to you for coins, I have to play a light card. But because of that, means the off players know that you need coins, so they're going to get coins from you as well, right? Because there's no way we can say, there was no way we could ever say, Jason, you cannot bid on this.
Right.
He could always bid. And because we were trying to catch up to him because he had the most coins, it just came down to, well, we need coins. We have to catch up to you. The only way we can catch up to you is by playing light cards. But if you know that we need coins, you're going to play a light card to say bid on one of us. So I don't know, it didn't quite work as well. And because it's not a true prisoner's dilemma, which if I play a dark card, I am not going to get any coins for it. The only thing I can hope to do is eliminate your card, which is fine for the first time or two. But then after the point, it's like, no, I need coin. I need to be able to catch up in coins. And the only way I'm going to catch up by coins is by playing light cards. So like I said, it was okay for a while. It went on too long. I almost wanted to jumpstart it to say, or instead of having it 9 coins, bring it down to like 5 coins. Because the first couple rounds, why wouldn't you play light cards? Because it gets you 2 coins if you play your king. So either start people with coins or just reduce the total number of coins you need. So it was, like I said, it was okay. I could see playing it once in a while. I wouldn't say recommend buying it, but if you get the right group of friends together, I think it could be fun. If you like lying, if you like that kind of backstabbing thing and everybody's okay with being lied to their face almost every round, then sure.
So did Jason end up winning?
I think Jack might have actually. Because we had eliminated Jason from all of our betting. Jack then got up. I think Jack, Lala, and Jason all had like 6 or 7 coins. I only had 4 because I kept on backstabbing people. So I was getting rid of all the cards, but I wasn't getting any money for it. So they were all up there, and I think it just came down to one round when it was like, well, all Jack needs to do is to have a correct bid or whatever, and it just came down to a coin flip of I say it came down to a guess essentially, and he was able to get the final 2 coins.
Well, it sounds like an interesting design. I don't know if it's a fun game or not, but all right. So that's going to take me to my second game. It's another game that is very heavy. As a matter of fact, I don't know for sure. Is it a 4? Does it go higher than 5 on
5 was the highest.
Oh, I thought for sure it's going to be like a 7 or an 8. This is a game. It's you can actually play it multiplayer. I've only ever played it solo, and this is not really a first. I played this game a long time ago, and it used to kind of go with me on the road. But I broke it back out because I wanted to play it again. I was in the mood, and that is SOS Titanic. SOS Titanic is a 1.64 for the weight. Plays 1 to 5 players. Plays about 30 minutes. I've only ever played it solo. I'd be interested in trying it, maybe 2-player or 3-player, just to see, if it plays that much differently. But this is a game that is, so it's actually designed by Bruno Catala and Ludovic Montblanc and put out by, is it Ludonati? However you pronounce it. And my game actually, it didn't come with any English instructions, only came with the French instructions, but you can download the instructions online. So it's basically solitaire. Like if you ever played Klondike version of solitaire, this is kind of what it is. You are okay. So you're on the Titanic. The Titanic hits the iceberg and it starts the clock. And it comes with this booklet. And you open it up to the first page and it has a silhouette of the Titanic, and it's just starting to take on a little bit of water. And so you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. I think you start out by putting cards in 4 columns. And I think there's 2 open spaces to the right, kind of like you would with solitaire, where you kind of have either the spaces at the top for the aces, or I think most solitaire games you start out filling all the rows, might be 1 or 2 cards, but this one gives you a little couple open areas. And what you're doing in this game is you are trying to rescue passengers. You're trying to rescue either first class passengers or steerage class, third class, whatever you want to call it. So you're rescuing the rich and you're rescuing the poor. And if it's first class passengers or the steerage, there are 2 sets of cards for each of those classes. The first class passengers, those cards run from basically 1 to 13. And the steerage class goes from 1 to 17. And your 1s are pretty much your aces. In this game, your 1s are your lifeboats. So if you get a 1, it's your lifeboat. You set it off to the side, and then you can start putting cards in there of the same class or suit or color, whatever you. So the first class are purple, or first class are yellow, and the steerage class I think are purple. It could be, it might be flip-flopped. I can't remember. And so you start putting them in there. Of course, you're going up in ascending order, putting it in the lifeboat. Out on the game board, you are going to basically do the same thing, only you're not alternating suits. You're not you're sticking all with first class people or steerage class people, and you're trying to put the cards out there in descending order. So obviously you kind of want to get higher cards at the top and then fill in below. If you get a 17 or 13, whatever the two highest cards are for those suits, you can move them over to the open columns, which represent new lifeboats that you can work on. So it's very standard solitaire in that form. Now, where the twists come in this game is that every player it gets a crew member, and each crew member has a special ability. Now, some of the crew members can't be played unless you're playing multiplayer, like the captain and a couple of the other ones. So if you're only playing solo, there's like 4 or 5 different crew members that you can randomly choose from, and they all have a special ability. One of them is allows you to, if you fail during what they call the passenger setup phase, if you fail that, then you draw 3 action cards and pick one to keep, versus just one. One of them, I forget. I think one of them doesn't let you draw any action cards. You just start the game with 4 action cards, and they've all got some different abilities. So that's a little bit of a twist. And these special actions, or these action cards that you're going to draw, again, give you other abilities. It may allow you to move passengers from 2 different lines, consolidate them, like shuffle them up and redistribute them into 2 different lines. It may allow you to go through the discard pile and bring out a passenger you need. May allow you to go through the actual draw pile, bring out a passenger you need. There's one that allows you to, it's a collapsible boat, gives you an extra space out on the board to put passengers. So you've got different things that you can do. And between the action cards and the crew abilities, that's where the real differences in this game lie. It does give you a little bit more flexibility in mitigating, with the cards that are coming out, because on your turn, you're basically going to do 2 things. You have 2 choices. Very first thing you're going to do in your turn is you're going to move any cards that you can move based off what's out on the board. So if you can move a 2 below a 3, or 15 below a 16, you can do all that. You just have to keep them within their own classes of passengers. Once you're done with that, you then must choose one of 2 things. You can either play an action card out of your hand, which will allow you to do something specific. And if you play that, then you get to skip the next part of it. If you don't have an action card to play, or if you choose not to play an action card, you then have to do what they call setting up the passengers. And this, you're going to look at your character card. It's going to have a number on there. It could be 1 to 3, it could be 1 to 6. You choose how many cards you want to draw out of the passenger deck. So if your range is 1 to 3, you can choose 1, you can choose 2, you can choose 3. It's your choice. And what you're doing is you're drawing, let's say you're drawing 3 cards. You're going to draw 3 cards. You're going to look at those 3 cards, and you can play 1 card out of those 3 onto either one of the columns, if it works, or into the lifeboat, if there's lifeboats out there. But you can only ever play 1, and you must play 1 if you can. If you can't play any of those cards, you put them in the discard pile. You have failed to set up the passengers. You then flip the page of the book. And then generally for most of them, if you flip the page of the book, because of that, you get to draw an action card so that you have it later on. As you're flipping the pages of the book, it starts out, I think, with the column, the row to the or the column to the far left has 3 little portholes that you can see. And if you flip the pages down, it's going to be down to 2 portholes. Flip the page again, it's going to be down to 1. And then if you flip it again, that area is submerged. Okay. If there's any cards left in a row, or I'm sorry, in a column, when it gets submerged, those passengers are going to panic, and they're all going to rush forward trying to get out of the water and get to a new lifeboat. So let's say you had 5 cards in a column, it gets submerged, they're going to panic. You're going to take those 5 cards. You're going to take all the cards from the next row to the right, or the next column to the right. You're going to shuffle them all together, and you're going to make 1 new column. Why do I keep saying row? Anyways, you're going to make 1 new column. So it's going to make that column have more cards, making it more difficult, more than likely. But it's also going to take all the work that you've worked on for both of those columns, and it's going to shuffle it all up. So you're going to lose any potential work that you did. So managing that, if you know it's going to happen soon, you really want to do your best to try to get those whatever cards you can out of those columns and either into lifeboats or into other columns if they numerically can fit in there. And that's pretty much how the game is going to play. Now, at the end of the game, you're gonna score. If it sinks and you haven't rescued all the passengers, you look and you at your lifeboats and you see basically whatever the highest ranking passenger is in each of the lifeboats. So say you've got up to 8 on one lifeboat and you got all 13 of the first class passengers in one lifeboat. You're going to add those together for a 21. And that's your final score. 19, they say historically, is what the ratio of passengers would come out to be. So historical 19 would be the base score that you'd want to get. Now, I played it 4 times the other day. I got a 4. I got a 21, a 24, and then I got a 67, I think. Because what happens is that if you rescue all the passengers before the ship sinks, so if you rescue all of them, that's going to give you a 60, because that's what it's going to come out to be point wise for the passengers. You're then going to add in the number of the page that you're on. So the page starts at 10, it goes down to 0. So you add in, so if I ended the game and I was on page 2, I would add 2 to the score. The other thing you're going to do is that you're going to look at the lifeboats that you have, because I said at the beginning, there are 2 sets of cards for the first class, or 2 sets of cards for the steerage class. Those 2 different sets of cards are only differentiated by one of them has an anchor symbol at the top and the other one doesn't. If you rescue all the passengers, you're going to then look into your lifeboats and you're going to take your largest run of consecutive anchors for first class and the largest run of consecutive anchors for steerage class, and you're going to add whatever it is. So maybe it's 5, so you're going to add 5 to your score. That's how you kind of get higher than 60. Now, anytime I played, I never worried about, oh, this is an anchor, this one isn't an anchor. Oh, I don't want to move that one over there. I want to wait. Because quite frankly, the game's hard enough without worrying about it. It just, those are just kind of afterthoughts. So yeah, it's random for sure. It's a card game. It's a solitaire game. You are able to do some mitigation through those character powers and through the action cards, but it plays fast. I mean, it's a 30-minute game at most. Sometimes it's shorter than that. And I think it's thematic when the areas submerge and they all come rushing forward and kind of screw up your progress. To me, that it's very chaotic, and I think that's thematic for the game. Is it, it's not that much different than a regular solitaire game. I wish they had it online on the like as a computer app, because I used to play solitaire a lot when I was on the road, just sitting in my hotel room or whatever. Yeah, I think that would be cool if they did, but it's a nice little game. I don't know if it's still in print, to be honest, but it's fun. It's a good time. So that is SOS Titanic by Ludonaut.
Yeah, I don't think it's in print anymore. I know when it first came out, I was interested in it, and it basically came and went. I don't think it made a big splash.
Well, they maybe they jumped from the upper part. Is it too soon to make a Titanic joke?
Give another couple of 50 years.
Okay.
My second game is one called Rainbow Poker. There's on Board Game Geek. There's no weight for this game. Maybe it's below a 1. I'm not sure. It is designed by Curtis Patrick and put up by Danger Games. Danger Games has this and like one other game published, so it's from a small publisher. I think it's like a first-time designer. It obviously didn't get a wide distribution, but what Rainbow Poker is, it combines trick taking with poker. So there are 80 cards in the deck, 5 different colors or suits, but they're in here, they're just colors. And each color only has cards 10 through ace, and there's 3 of each. So 3 10s, 3 jacks, 3 queens, 3 kings, and 3 aces. Shuffle them all together. You deal each person 15 cards. The way this game is going to work, you then go into bidding. We'll explain how the tricks work before we get into bidding. So you are first going to play 2 cards out of your hands, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 1. And that uses up all 15 cards in your hand. So each one of those is a trick. So for the first trick, you're going to be playing 2 cards. To win the trick, you're then looking at the poker aspect of the cards you're playing. So if I play 2 aces and Dean plays 2 kings, my 2 aces beat his 2 kings. So I would win the trick. But they have to be the same color. So if I play 1 red ace and 1 purple ace, and Dean plays 2 green kings, he has a pair. I only have ace high. So even though I have 2 aces played, they're not the same color. So it doesn't count as a pair of aces. So no matter whatever cards you put down, you look at a single color of the cards you've laid down, and whatever your highest ranked poker suit within those same colors counts. This confused Lella to no end. I don't think she ever really got that. And because it's very counterintuitive. When you play poker, you don't have 3 queens of the same suit. You have 3 queens and 2 aces. That's a full house. No, it's only full house if they're all the same color. And that's so you have kind of these multiple levels of complexity. Not so much complexity. It's not the way you're used to playing either trick-taking game or the way you're used to playing poker. The suits are ranked. So purple is the highest color, red is the lowest color. So if I play 2 red aces and Dean plays 2 purple aces, they're tied, but purple is stronger than the red. So Dean would win based on his purple aces, and that beats my red aces. So you play 1 round with 2 cards. Whoever wins the trick takes all the cards, puts them in front of them, and they now have 1 trick. You then play 3 cards out of your hand and do the same thing, then 4, then 5, then 1. The only kind of special things to the game is there are 5 wild cards. And they're wild only on the color, not on the number. So there's a wild 10. So that wild 10 will be a 10 of any color in your hand. For tricks, when you play 5 cards, the only time you can get away without playing all the same color is if you play 5 cards of different colors as a rainbow. So you and they all have to be the same number. So I would have to play 5 aces, and all the aces have to be different colors. We had that happen once in the game. I had 5 kings of different colors, and I was able to play them all and win that trick, and that's the only trick. So after 5 rounds, you have played all your 15 cards, and people will have won the different tricks. So the way bidding works, when I deal you your 15 cards, starts with the player to the left of the dealer. You have to bid how many tricks you think you're going to win. So you could say, I'm going to bid 1. Then it goes to the next player. They either have to outbid you or they pass. So let's say Jason's next, he says 2, then Lella says 3, and I'd say that's too much. So Lella is now the high bidder. She had bid 3. That's the only high bid that counts. It doesn't matter whether that Dean bid 1. It's just that Lella has bid 3. If Lella's able to get 3 or more tricks, she's the only person that scores during that round. And she scores the amount of tricks that she bid. So if she bid 3, but she actually wins 4, she's made her bid, but she only gets 3 points. So you don't want to be bidding too low. Like if you think you're going to win 4, you don't want to do a high bid of 2, because then you kind of lost the other 2 tricks. But you also don't want to maybe not say 4 because it's not guaranteed that you're going to win 4. So if Lella did not get her 3 tricks, then everyone else will score for the number of tricks that they got. Okay. That's one part of the bidding. That happens before any cards are played. Once people start to win some tricks, you can now bid your previously won tricks on the current trick. So let's say Dean, I, and Lella have won a previous trick, and we're up to playing 5 cards. We all play our 5 cards face down. And then I can say, or any of us can say, I'm going to bid my previously won trick. So I basically add it to the pot. So I have my face down 5 cards I'm playing, plus the pile of one of the tricks I've previously won. Then goes to Dean. If Dean has previously won a trick, he has to bid, basically has to match my bid, or he's out of the round. So you never up it. You have to play your one trick. So let's say he says, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to bid my extra trick. Basically, that means he's folded. He's no longer going to play. His cards that he's played won't impact who wins that trick. Jason, he doesn't have any tricks to bid. So he is automatically still in the game. Okay. Lella says, okay, I'm going to match your bid. So now Lella and I both have extra tricks in the bid. Dean is out of the round, and Jason is in the round, but he doesn't have any bid tricks. So then we turn over our cards and see who wins the 5-card poker thing. If Jason wins the poker round, he wins just the poker pot, not the bids, not the tricks that were bid.
All right.
So he would take those trick cards, but then we would say which one between Lella and I had the better poker hand. So then they would win that. So let's say Lella had the bigger poker hand. She would take her bid back, and she would take my bid. So she lost the main trick, but she was able to win the secondary one. If Lella had won the trick, then she would get the trick cards plus her bid plus my bid. So now she's up to 3.
Yeah, it's like having a side pot.
Yes.
In poker.
Yeah. And the only people that can win that side pot are the people that put into that pot.
Right.
The first person, and then, once the 5 rounds are done, you look at the person who has the high bid. Did they make it? If so, they get that. If not, then everybody else counts up their tricks, and that's how many points they get. First person to 11 points is the winner. Once you start playing it, it makes more sense. The explanation of it, I tried to make it as simple as possible, but you really are adding the idea of trick taking with poker and bidding in poker.
All right.
The game has one huge flaw. You deal out the 15 cards, and everybody sits there for 5 minutes going, so which 2 cards do I want to put for my 2 trick? What 3 cards do I want to put my 3 trick, 4 and 5? We just spent, if the game lasted 45 minutes or 40 minutes, we probably spent 20 minutes just trying to figure out what tricks we want to play.
Yeah.
Normally when you have a trick taking game, even with bidding, it's usually a lot quicker than this, but this, you basically have to plan out all your tricks ahead of time. So what we were all doing is we were all taking our cards and going, okay, those are for 2, and you put them aside. That's for 3. And quite often what happens is you had maybe 2 good 4 ones, but you didn't have a good 5 one. So which one do you think is going to win? And added to that, remembering that your tricks the cards that you play only matter if they're the same color. So if I have 3 queens of purple, but I don't have any more purple cards, do I play that as the 3 one? Or do I try and make it a 4, and hopefully 3 of a kind will win the 4 round? Because no one else can beat my 3 queens.
All right.
But if someone has, and this is where it gets kind of confusing. If we're playing the 4 round, I play 3 purple queens and a 10 red. My hand for that round is just my 3 purple queens. If you play an all red straight, 10 jack queen king, for example, you then have to look at the board to figure out which one beats what. So you have to look at the 4-card range and say, does a straight of 4 cards beat 3 of a kind in a 4-card range? Because a straight of 3 or 4 is a lesser amount than having a straight of 5, but you can only get a straight of 5 in the 5 thing round. So it's maybe because I'm not that up on poker, none of us were. Like, we all understand that like a full house beats like a pair, but does a 5-card straight, or does a 4-card straight beat 3 of a kind if you're only playing 4 cards? And what if you're playing 5 cards and you have a 4-card straight and someone plays 4 of a kind. So it got, you kind of had to go through, and I was having to call each round saying, okay, well, Lella's won because she's got 2 queens. You've got whatever. Well, she's got 3 of a kind. You have 2 of a kind. You have 3 of a kind, but you have two of one color and one the other. Therefore, it's only a pair. So it wasn't as easy as like a normal trick taking game. I play like diamonds. I play this suit. Everybody else has to follow suit, or you play the trump suit.
Right.
And you go, bam, bam, bam. Okay, it's very easy. This is okay. Everybody stop. Everybody's play their cards. Okay. Those off colors don't work. So these are the colors you're left with. And okay, now let's look at everybody's hand based on what they can actually bid. So I enjoyed it, but yeah, in my mind, it took too long before you can actually start playing the tricks. That time after you're dealt felt like forever. It felt like that was more than half the game of just people trying to figure out what they're going to play in that round. And I want it to be snappier. I want trick taking games to be, card. Okay, you win the trick. Card. You win the trick. Not, okay, hold on. I've decided to change my strategy and decided to maybe not play this 4 card. I'm going to play this 4 card. And it's just, and then it was, okay, let's figure out who won, because it's not immediately obvious who wins each round. Couple that with, okay, so Dean was the high bidder for 3. So did he win 3? Yes, he did. Therefore, he only gets the points, but it doesn't matter then how many tricks you won. You only get the 3 that you bid. So it had a lot of really interesting things. It just kind of felt that I don't know how to streamline it, but I could see why this game isn't going to take off and why a lot of people probably haven't heard about it, because there's a lot of things going on that if you're looking for a trick taking game, this is more complicated than you want a trick taking game to be. If you want to play poker, then why do I want trick taking? So it's an amalgamation of really 2 separate styles of games that comes out with a new style of game, but I don't think you're going to make either side happy.
It sounds really interesting. I definitely would like to try it. I think it's one of those where it's going to have a learning curve, though. You're going to have to play it a few times to really kind of let it sink in, especially if you don't have much of a poker background. But just the whole, I mean, it's a trick taking game without leading, like you're not leading out a trump,
right?
A trump suit or whatever. And then, of course, there's a pecking order as far as, so there's a pecking order in the colors, right?
Yes. So
yeah. So
purple will always beat the same, but colors only come into play when there's a tie.
Right.
So if you play 2 purple aces and I play 3 red 10s, although purple beats red, my 3 10s is better than your pair of aces.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot going on. It does sound interesting, but I mean, like you said, it's going to be way too convoluted for the vast majority of people that want to play a quick trick taking style game.
Yeah. But like I said, I actually quite enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my play of it. Everybody the other 3 people really enjoyed it as well. It's just, I don't know where it sits. If you said you want to play trick taking game, it's like, well, I have other trick taking games that are much quicker to get to the table that gave me the same level of enjoyment. Like this one was just enjoyable as diamonds, as Teach You, and everything else.
Right.
Even Teach You is easier to teach than this one.
Sure. Yeah.
So
all right,
that's Rainbow Poker from Curtis Patrick from Danger Games.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up our first bite segment. And we are going to do a top 5. We didn't do a top 5 last time because we were still, I guess, in mourning of our games that got sent to the vault and just didn't know how to make a top 5 list after that. So we're going to do a top 5 list this time. But before we do that, I do need to shift once again from the sun because the right side of my face is on fire. So just 1 second.
That's right. It's Dean the Sundial.
That's right. I don't want to look like Two-Face when
you can see how long we've been recording by the travel of the sun across Dean's face.
That's right. All right. Okay. Sorry about that. And I wonder if I can use my headphones as a hairbrush. Okay. So our top 5 list this week is going to be one that we actually did 3 years ago on the Talking Across the Game Board uh, podcast.
So
And it was
we're crossing the streams here.
we are. It's you take that whichever way you want, whichever. But I was going back and I was looking at some of the top 5 lists that we did, and I thought, okay, this is one that I think we could revisit. And it was a topic we talked about with mastering games or game mastery. So we did a top 5 list of games that we wanted to master. So before we get into our top 5 list, because I'm assuming that they will probably have changed. I thought we would recap what our 5 games were for each of us 3 years ago. Have we mastered any of them? And I guess before we do that is when you talk about mastering a game, what does that mean to you? Is it actually like mastering so that when you sit down and play it, you feel like you cannot be beat? Or is it just delving deep enough and into the game to explore it as much as you think it needs to be explored? What's your take on that?
I don't remember what I said from the previous list.
I don't either.
I will tell you the way I made my new list was I put games on the list that I felt lost when I was playing. I don't feel I fully grasp how the game works and all the gears. So not that I want to be able to sit down and say, I know exactly how this game works. I want to be able to sit down at that game and say, I understand what I want to do and how to do it. So the games on my list were ones that I kind of sit down, we quite often you finish playing a game saying, it didn't fully understand this, or it didn't click until much later in the game, or, okay, now I understand how this works. So those are the type of games I want to master. Ones that I want to be able to sit down at the table and not feel lost saying, I don't know what I'm doing. How do I start this game? That type of thing.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm probably similar. I don't think that I'll ever have one of those games where I feel confident enough, or I'm gonna enter into the WBC tournament and take home the title. But I also don't know if either one of us really, if our style of play or of playing games, getting games to the table, is ever going to lead us to being able to master any game, because we just don't play that many games over and over and over and over again. Maybe if we stop podcasting or doing reviews or whatever, maybe that would change, but it's not conducive to our lives at this point in time. So our top 5 lists from last time, I think I put this on the agenda.
You did. Yeah.
I hope I did. So my top 5 list was well, so your top 5 list was, your number 5 was Fury of Dracula.
Yeah.
Your number 4 was Lisboa. Your number 3 was a miniature game, Age of Sigmar, which I think that's in the Warhammer universe.
Yeah.
Your number 2 was Food Chain Magnate, which you're not allowed to say it. I guess I'm allowed to say it. And then your number 1 was another game that you're not allowed to talk about, and that is Race for the Galaxy. So we know there's going to be at least 2 games on your list that'll be new. And then my 5 choices were Power Grid, which I don't even understand how that made the list. Maybe I thought I was going to master it, then go back and redeem myself against a certain person that I played with the first time. My number 4 was 18XX. My number 3 was Through the Ages. My number 2 was Twilight Struggle. And my number 1 was Combat Commander. So yeah, I was all over the place on that one, and I'm not sure what my thought process was. So with that being said, we're going to do our top 5 list of games we want to master as of June 2021. So 3 years ago, is almost exactly 3. Well, we did in April 2018, so a little over 3 years ago. Let's see where we're at now. So this, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Okay, so I picked 5 new games on the list.
Okay.
So there's going to be no crossover with my previous list.
All right.
So my number 5 is one that I got to the table when I first bought it. Sat on my shelf for a while. Lella and I played it a little, I think about a month or so ago. And I'm all the games on my list, I felt like a little lost, or felt like I'm missing a piece of the game that I want to learn more about it. So my number 5 is Anachrony.
Hmm.
So I know how to play Anachrony. I don't feel I know how to play it well. I don't feel like I fully understand the complexities of the strategies of the the time travel and whatever else. Anachrony is a worker placement game with some time travel in it. Basically played into 2 halves. One part is kind of getting ready for an explosion and then getting people off the planet to be that each person represents a different religion on the planet. It is fairly, again, it's one of these games that's rated higher on Board Game Geek than I think it really warrants complexity wise. That I don't think it's as complex as some of the other games on my list, but there's a lot going on. Worker placement to get people so you can activate different things on your board, and people get tired, so you need ways to either refresh them, and then you need to be able to manipulate the time track so you can build certain things at certain times. So there is a fair bit going on, but the fundamentals of just worker placement to get resources to buy stuff is kind of there. But I feel as if I understand it at I'm kind of standing at the base of a mountain going, yeah, I see that there's a mountain there, but I want to get up that hill. So I'm now looking down to my vast knowledge of the game as opposed to looking up going, I think there's so much more to this game that I haven't started yet. So that's why my number 5 is Anachrony.
All right. That's probably a good choice. I haven't played it, but maybe I should play it against you since you don't understand it, or you haven't mastered it yet. All right. So my number 5 is actually a game that it's going to be one for my previous list. It's still on there.
Okay, but your thing specifically says pick 5 new. It says pick 5 new games you want to master.
Oh, okay. I didn't read what I wrote, so fine, whatever. So my number 5 is going to be, it's actually going to be Terraforming Mars. Now, I know you're probably not as big a fan of Terraforming Mars. I do enjoy the game, but it's one of those because I don't play it frequently enough. I always feel like I'm learning it again, and I'm not only learning it again, but I think I've only scratched the surface on all the different cards that are in that game, and I just play the base game over and over. I have a couple of the expansions. I have the turmoil one with the politics. I don't have all the expansions for it, so I haven't even seen most of the cards for that game. So I always feel like when I do play it, I'm definitely behind the 8 ball because I don't have enough of understanding how those cards sync together. And I know a lot of people when they play, especially if they do the card drafting, they're like, oh yeah, I want this one, or oh yeah, that whatever, that's not gonna. And I'm constantly looking, I'm like, well, that looks pretty good. Well, yeah, I think I like the picture. I could use that. I could use that one. And then I end up getting a card. I'm like, why did I take this one? I don't even have any other parasite cards or whatever. So now some people say, do underwater cities, because isn't that kind of the somewhat spiritual successor?
Yeah.
But anyways, Terraforming Mars. I look at it, I have lofty goals and dreams, but I just always feel like it's starting back at space zero when I play it.
So I've played Terraforming Mars only 3 times, and every time I played without with no corporations, just playing the basic game. Actually, no. When I played against you,
I think we picked corporations that time online. Yeah,
and I feel the same way, and I guess it's because the familiarity of the deck. Like I have no clue what types of cards are in there. That it's not on my list, but that's a good choice because I can definitely see. You kind of need to know how to build the combos, and for that you need to have played the game a couple of times so you see the synergies between the cards. Okay, so my number 4 is not Terraforming Mars. This is Terra Mystica. Terra Mystica is a game that when I first played it, I wasn't a big fan of, but I've played it several times since, and I'm enjoying it more. But because there's so many different races in Terra Mystica, I kind of bounce around from race to race that I haven't gone back to say, okay, I've played the witches, for example. I played the witches once. Kind of halfway through the game, you realize, oh, that's how I should have been playing it from the start. But then I've never gone back to replay the witches. I always go on to something else because it's not a game I play every week, but every time I do play the game, I play something new, and I always seem to forget what I learned from the previous races, or I've gone back to a previous race to try and, make myself better at it. So Terra Mystica, again, it's not, all my games are definitely on the heavier side. So they're heavier, but also the idea that each time you need to be approaching the game differently based on which race you're at, because each race will give you a special ability. They're going to give you a special way to, they start differently. They start with different resources, and they have an ability that you can unlock that's different than anybody else's. So if you only play each race once, you kind of need to go back. I feel I need to go back to be more comfortable with the different races I've previously played, just so I don't always feel like I'm lost when I sit down for a new race going, okay, I don't know how this race works. So I would like to get to the point when I've played each race at least twice. So the next time I played, I can say, okay, yes, I remember when I played the witches, this is how you approach it. So I'm kind of, further along than just going, what do I do with all my pieces? So that is my number 4, Terra Mystica.
All right, that's a good one. I didn't think about that one, but that would definitely be one that I would like to play more for sure. Okay, so my second one is actually, it's I wouldn't consider it a war game. It is a GMT game, but it is Here I Stand. And I've played Here I Stand several times, but I think, and maybe this is you'll see the similarity between most of our games on there. You just talked about the different factions in Terra Mystica. I think for me, Here I Stand, because there's the 6 different nations or factions that you can play in this, and each one plays differently, and the cards that are best for them, because it's a card driven game as well, the cards that work best for them are definitely different. But just your approach to the game, if you're playing the Ottomans versus if you're playing the Protestants, or if you're playing the the papacy, it's every game is different based off which faction you're playing. Every game is different based off of who else is playing in the game, and their kind of their take on how they should play their faction. And the great thing is that every game is great. Every time I play it, I have a good time. There's games that have lasted a long time. There's games that have ended in a short amount of time because people kind of ignore and don't keep an eye on everybody, and then all of a sudden someone sneaks up and is able to do it. And usually that's the Protestants, if that happens, if the Pope is too busy trying to be more militaristic than what they should be. But yeah, Here I Stand is one where I guess recurring theme, you just feel like you're scratching the surface on it, but it's one where it's got depth, it's got strategy, and it's a rewarding game. So that is my number 4, Here I Stand by GMT.
Yeah, this is one that I do want to try one of these days, but it's the time that always kind of scares me a bit.
Sure.
So my number 3, and my top 3 all kind of fall into the same category, in which they're restrictive games and you can't be doing everything in the game. So it was funny that we were talking about capstone game during the banter, because this is a capstone game. This is called Cooper Island. The reason why Cooper Island is on the list is because even I did a review for this. I related it to being in a very, very small confined box. You have very, very limited actions through the game, and you need to be making sure that every action you're doing is what your long-term plan is. Because there's going to be different things you can do in the game. You can be sailing your ship around the island. You can be expanding your the buildings that you're building. You can try and go after the resource generation. You can try and get your fewer buildings but more powerful buildings. You can try and go after certain spots on the board. It's all about finding an island and trying to explore it and building it up. But you can only really be doing like one major thing and maybe one minor thing. If you try and do little bits of everything, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to score any points. And it's basically the points in this game, you'll be getting like 18 points, 20 points, 25 points, because it's very tough to do anything. And every time I sit down, I feel like I understand how the game works, but I haven't got my head around how do I maximize my points. Because as Dean was saying, with his Terraforming Mars, you kind of look at the buildings that come up and go, oh, that building's really cool. But if you haven't geared your early strategy towards building buildings, you could probably get it, but then you've kind of changed courses, and you really can't deviate too much from the course you set at the beginning of the game. So you have to say, this game, I'm going to focus on getting buildings. To get buildings, I need to, to gather resources. So I'm going to be buildings with minor, my major's building, and my minor is going to be resource collection. If you then start seeing all the boat things that come up, or the shipping stuff come up, and you get sidetracked by that, well, you're taking those actions away from what your primary actions are. Yes, they may be kind of cool. They may give you a little bonus, but is that bonus worth giving up the main actions you're going to be doing? Like if I'm not building buildings because I would decide to do some shipping, I may get a few points there, but how many points am I losing from not putting my effort back into my main thrust of building buildings? So like I said, it's a game that you're locked in a box in a straitjacket. I really, really enjoy that. I know it's not for everybody, but it's a game that I want to get better at so I can better judge the actions I should be doing. I feel like I kind of get locked in one strategy early on that may not work with the board setup, may not work with the buildings out there. I just say I want to do buildings. Well, that may be not the best time for that. That initial setup maybe not advantageous to go buildings. So it's a game that I want to master more. So I feel comfortable that when I decide on a strategy, I'm pretty sure that that's the correct strategy that I should be playing. Whether I'm going to win or not is beside the point. But quite often I get halfway through the game going, I screwed up on round one. I should have gone this way as opposed to that way. So that is my number 3, Cooper Island.
All right, another one I haven't played. So if I played more, I'd probably have I'd have more difficulty in choosing. So my number 3 is going to be a game that I just recently purchased. I've only played it once maybe, and you gave me you didn't necessarily question why I bought it. That was Zolkin. This is a different one, but my number 3 is Newsford. Why Newsford? Because of its one, I mean, you can play multiplayer, but I'll probably end up playing a lot solo. But I just think it's one of those where it's kind of that right sort of Rosenberg fix. You've got the extra decks of cards that you can get for it, as you want to explore more into the game. But it's also it doesn't outstay its welcome. It plays, I mean, Glass Road plays really fast. Newsford is, plays, longer than that, but it's not going to be a 3-hour grind to play the game. And I think for me, only having played it once, I think there's a lot of things with all those different cards and the different the different buildings, but then also kind of how you want to develop your board out there. Do you want to clear, how much force do you want to clear? I just it interests me, and it's probably just interests me because I haven't played it that much. If I played it, maybe 10 times, maybe I wouldn't feel that way, that there isn't that much more to master of it or explore in it. But yeah, that's my number 3, Newsford.
Yeah, Newsford. I like the game. It's not my favorite Rosenberg, but I think it's a good solid one to add to collection because I do enjoy it.
I'm not sure I would say it's my favorite, but I think it's the one that kind of sticks out.
Yeah. I like the pick, like the secret picking of the end game scoring that someone else can steal later on.
Yeah, I bet you do.
But yeah, that's a good choice. My number 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. I think it's in my pretty sure it's in my top 10 games of all time. So you may say, well, why is it on this list? Because every time I play it, I love playing the game. I never think I'm playing the game well. This is called Madeira. This is my favorite What's Your Game? And I said it's in my top 10 games of all time. I sound like a broken record. This is a very heavy game. And this one, again, the Cooper Island, Madeira, my number 1, all have the same idea in which you want to be doing everything. And you realize that you can't, that you start to need to focus, but your eye gets drawn away by scoring points in different areas. But if you're not set up to do that type of thing, then you're going to be wasting your effort to try and get those few points. But if you leave those points for someone else to get, they can get a whole whack load of points. You're going to get nothing for it. So do you slightly alter your strategy to try and take advantage of maybe getting some points there? But then where are you going to be giving up other points? So Madeira is about the I guess when Portugal took over the islands, and you are trying to get crops. You're trying to build up the city of Madeira. You're trying to ship goods back to the king, whatever, the royalty back in Europe. You're trying to make sure your workers are going to be fed. So there's all these different things you're trying to manipulate. You're trying to manipulate pirates. You're trying to manipulate where your people are, trying to manipulate what resources you're getting. You're trying to manipulate the city and manipulate the resources you're getting to process them to be able to ship them back. But you can't do everything. If you're going to focus on the city, you're going to have to give up a lot of your work in the shipping, but you can't completely give up the shipping. Well, what percentage of effort do you put into shipping versus building up the town? What effort do you put into gathering more resources and getting more farmers out on the main board? There's a bit of dice rolling and dice allocation. And that's going to affect the prices. So how much money do I need to make to be able to buy this certain, to be able to take the action? Because people are going to be putting their dice out, taking the action, but then you have to pay to do the other action. Are you going to have enough coins based on the way that the action is triggered to be able to get, I always feel like I'm just hanging on by my fingertips of understanding how well I'm doing in the game. But I want to be able to get my whole hands on the shelf and be able to lift my head up and say, yes, I understand how I should be approaching the game. So I love the game. Every time I play it, I have a fantastic time playing it, but I always feel like I'm not so much missing something, but it's like when you play a sport or go out for a run, or you think, oh, I feel really good, but I don't think I was doing it right. So I love my place in Madeira. I just don't think I'm playing it as efficiently as I could be playing it. So that's why I want to master my number 2, and that's Madeira.
Yeah, we'll have to see if this game's available on either Tabletopia or Tabletop Simulator or something. I think there's another site that people talk about as well. I can't remember if it's Madeira that's available or maybe it's Nippon, but yeah, that's a good choice. All right, so my number 2 is I kind of struggled with, so I have an honorable mention. I kind of flip flop back and forth between if it would be on the list or not, but my number 2 is actually going to be Maracaibo. Maracaibo is, I've only played it solo. I've never been able to play it multiplayer. I've played it solo a couple different times, but I've also never played the story mode with the solo play, because you can play the deck of cards and kind of play them as a story mode, and it kind of changes kind of how the board is laid out as you progress through it. So I want to not only explore it multiplayer, because I know it'll play differently, obviously, when you have other people in there playing the game with you. But I want to explore that story mode, either solo or multiplayer. Probably will explore it solo, the story mode on the solo, because I don't know if I could get enough multiplayer games in to really kind of go all the way through that story consistently. But it's a Pfister design. It's one that I really enjoyed. I like the concept of the game. I like what you do in the game. I like where you get the choices of, it's kind of like what you said before. Is my strategy right? Am I stupid truck or tractor? Am I developing my ship to its fullest potential at this point in time? Because I like in the game where you can decide, okay, well, yeah, I want to expand my cargo hold, or I want to expand, I can't remember what it was. I guess it's expand your fighting capabilities and different stuff. So there's lots of choices within the game, which again leads me back to, kind of what you said, am I doing it correctly? Can I be winning by a greater percentage than what I am, or is this the reason why I lost by 2 points? That sort of thing. So that is my number 2, Pfister's Maracaibo.
Yeah, another good choice. Another one that I think I'm in the same boat. I played the game multiple times, but I'm playing it to the point where I think I understand it, but I don't think I've mastered it. I don't think I can sit down and say, okay, I know how to win this game. Right. I sit down and go, I have a little grasp of how this game plays.
I have a plan. Let's see how it works.
Yeah. So my number 1 is my newest game on my list, and is the Feld game. This is Feld's newest game, and that's one called Bonfire.
You haven't mastered this thing yet?
I have not mastered this thing yet. And Dean and I have discussed this after we played it, and I discussed this with Lella after her and I played it. Bonfire is a game that you need to be looking several steps ahead. and trying to make sure that all your steps you're taking are all going to be synergistic to each other. So Bonfire is about playing tiles to get actions and then spending those actions tiles or chits to be able to take a certain action. And depending on how many you spend will be the strength of the action you're taking. Those actions you're going to be taking are things like getting tasks off the main board. But you need to be getting the tasks. You need to be able to solve the tasks, which means you usually need to have resources. And to get resources, you need to be moving your people. Well, to move your people, you need to build the pass. And to build the pass, you need to be doing this. Getting that all work together, I understand how it all works. I always feel as if I'm halfway through the game going, I shouldn't have put that one there. I should have got those resources. I should have moved my person here. I should have got this guardian. I feel like I understand how the game works. I feel like I can sit down and explain the game, and I had to review the game. I don't think I could sit, like you're saying before about the WBC. I don't think I'm anywhere near confident to be able to sit down at a game and say, I think I'm going to be very competitive in this game. I'm confident I can sit down and say, I know how this game works. I can teach you how to play. I can't teach you how to win, because I don't think I fully grasp a good way to win, because you do need to be doing little bits of everything. But all the little bits you're doing, you have to make sure that they all tie together. And I don't think I've really got a handle on how best to do that yet. I don't know whether there is a best strategy to go for. I don't know whether there's a good way to say, this is the gnome you should be getting. This is the gnome you should not be getting. And if you get this gnome, this is how you approach the game, or whatever else. Because the first round tends to be people buying gnomes, which will give you a special ability. So how do you use that special ability to its fullest extent? And again, it goes back to things like Terra Mystica. When you are different each game you play, I don't feel I have a good grasp on, okay, well, if I get the shipping gnome, what's the best way to do my shipping process? So it's a game another game I really, really enjoy. It's probably my second favorite Feld right now. Because I love those choices, and I love finishing the game going, I got points, but if I just done this, or if I just done that, or if I hadn't picked up this card and got this card instead, or if you hadn't taken that one, I was going to take it, I would have scored bonus points, or I love being able to do that after a game. And after every game of Bonfire, I do the same thing. I always think about how I could have played it differently. And in my mind, that means I haven't really mastered it, because I keep on thinking how I should have played it better. So that is my number one, Bonfire from Stefan Feld.
Yeah, that's I really enjoy Bonfire. I didn't, for whatever reason, didn't pop up in my head to put on the list, but I'm glad you put it on yours, because I will help you try to master that game if we get to play it. As you were talking about that, I'm thinking, okay, so most of our games are all heavier games, heavy middleweight to heavy style games. And is that are those the only type of games that we feel like we should master, that we want to master? Or do we feel like lighter games or, lesser weight games are not worth mastering, that sort of thing? But
I think my level of what I mean by master, I think, is much lower than maybe the connotations of the word master is.
Well,
Again, for me, mastering is being able to sit down and feel comfortable that I know what I'm doing in the game. And I think for lighter games, that comes sooner than heavier games.
Yeah, and I think, for myself, exploring may be, the more appropriate word. But still, you want to master it so that you feel like you understand the inner workings of the game, and whether or not you can win all the time is not really part of that definition. So, all right. So my number one is a game called Schmarkum Schmore, and it is it's a card game.
I haven't heard of this one.
It's a friend craftian game. So my number one is, since I can't have Arkham Horror on my list, it is a card game. It is Marvel Champions. Now, the reason I put it on there, and I don't even know if you've ever played the game or not. You can play it solo, you can play it multiplayer. I've played it both ways. Why I want to explore it is because I am now probably, I don't know, 12 booster packs into the game, 2 bigger expansions into the game, and I haven't come anywhere close to playing anything other than like the base the base heroes that come with it. And I know that it definitely ramps up as far as the synergy between the different heroes and kind of some of the new stuff that they're adding in with some of the different heroes. But also those bigger expansions are talked about when the game first came out, that it wasn't really a campaign style game like Arkham is, but these bigger
like what is?
expansion. I, I'm just referencing it. I didn't say the full title. You imply whatever you think. Um, but these bigger expansions, they are mini campaigns. They're like 5 or 6 scenarios, and you can either play them individually or you can play them in progression. And it kind of gives you like a little, almost like a little comic book inside of how they're supposed to progress. So I do want to explore this game more, because I have enjoyed it whenever I've played it, and with all the new stuff coming out, and obviously I'm buying. Well, am I buying the new stuff because I'm a completionist, or am I buying the stuff because I really want to explore it and I enjoy it? That's probably a different topic for a different day. Once Dr. Graham is back in session with his therapy. But I do want to explore this game. I I haven't had a bad play of it, and I want to see how all the different heroes kind of work together. Do they? And this may be asking a lot of the game, but is it thematic from the standpoint of certain heroes work together because historically in the comics they work together on teams, or is it just simply a mathematical sort of thing where it doesn't matter who you plug and play, as long as you have, there's 4 different types of cards, like any other deck building game. You have the you know the the bruiser or the tank, and you have the finesse or the stealthy player or character. Is It doesn't matter which character it is, as long as you have the different type of classes in there. Are they all going to pretty much play the same? So, anyways, that's my number one. Marvel Champions. I think that's FFG if I'm not mistaken. And I want to explore it more. I know people have played it definitely more than me, and they still seem well. I will say the people that like the game still seem to really be playing it. And for those people that never enjoyed the game from the beginning or never tried it, it hasn't done anything to draw them into it anymore. So my
So
number one.
so your number one is just a reskin of Arkham Horror: The Living Card Game.
No, maybe no. I mean, yeah, sure. If I uh, can our Forbidden Vault games, can they be honorable mentions? So I did have one honorable mention, and that is I don't know if you did or not. Is My honorable mention was Tricerion. And the reason I have Tricerion on, even though I mean I've probably played it 4 or 5 times, it might be the only game that I can ever say that I've never lost at. But I we only played the base game. We rarely ever put the black, is it black alley or back alley, little module that comes in the base game. And then there's a couple of new expansions that came out, which someone said one of them's really good, the other one to kind of not worry about. But just with the base game and the original black alley module, I'm always, when I get done playing, I'm looking at the potential score track, and I'm like, how do people get up that high? I mean, we struggle to get to the middle range, and we never seem to get into to the high level trick cards. And I want to figure out how to do that. I want to see how much it changes the game. And I'm just always, it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, I understand what I'm doing, and it's one of those games that can be punishing, but why are these score points on this board? Because I don't know how you get to here. And then maybe other people are like, oh yeah, it's really simple. You do, this and this. I mean, for me, the mastering it is a fine line between, I want to explore it, I want to see how it works, I want to see how you get to that high score point, but I'm not interested in knowing, like, I don't want to be one of those players that says I must do this, this, and this every game because that's a guaranteed win. I don't want a Halifax hammer, like for a few acres of snow. I don't want to be. I guess I mean part of it is I want the thrill of the exploration. I don't necessarily care about the winning, but I don't want it to just be a written script of play this, this, and this, and you automatically win. That doesn't interest me at all.
It's funny when you're talking about the score track. That's my thing against Bonfire. So Bonfire track goes up to 100, then you have a little chit that you put underneath your marker that says 100 plus. Well, you turn that chit over, it says 200 plus.
All right.
I want to know how you get up to that 200 plus points.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I do have a couple questions. So of your original games that were on your list last time, do you feel like you've mastered any of those?
I think Lisboa, I think I have mastered in terms of I'm pretty not confident, but when I sit down to play Lisboa, I know what I'm doing now. When I first started playing Lisboa, and the reason why it was on the list, because you kind of sit down and going, okay, wait, what affects what? How do I rebuild Lisboa? How do I get cubes on there? How do I do this? I now understand that, and I'm confident that I can sit down and at least play the game semi-coherently. I don't think I'm very good at the game, but again, for my version of mastering, it's just being able to sit down at the game and think I know what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
So Lisboa, yes. Age of Sigmar, I haven't played that one enough. Food Chain Magnet. Again, I know how to play that game. I don't think I'm good at it in terms of I play Food Chain Magnet very reactionary. I don't have a game long plan. I have a turn plan type thing, which I want to get better at that. And
have you played any of the expansions to it yet?
But Food Chain Magnet?
Yeah.
No, I mean I have the expansion, but I'm not an expansion person, so I don't know what I do with it. Like, do I play it separately?
No, well, my understanding is that there's like little modules in there, like you can pick and choose what you want to add. I hear it's excellent. I mean, I hear there's some of the modules in there that you can add in are really, really good.
Yeah. I think for me though, I don't think I'm at the level that I would say I've mastered Food Chain Magnet, and I'd want to master a game before I start adding expansions to it.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say only Lisboa is the one out of that list that I feel that I've grown in my mastery of it. What about you?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, honestly, my number one last time was Combat Commander. Have I mastered it? Definitely not. I definitely played it more than the other. Well, I played through the ages a lot, especially online. Again, I don't think that I've mastered it, but I guess the other question would be, do I want to anymore? I don't think I do. I think I mean, maybe I'll play it online again, but I'm pretty much over that game, I think, at this point in time. Power Grid, I don't know why the hell that game was on my list. 18XX, I would still be interested in, but I think maybe I would shift that from 18XX maybe to Age of Steam, or maybe just even Steam. Twilight Struggle, I definitely would want to still play it more and explore it. And it's another one of those where I just don't play it enough to feel like when I get a card in my hand, like, okay, this is a must play card, or no, I just played for the ops points, that sort of thing. So of those, I mean, Combat Commander might be the only one I'd say that I feel comfortable enough with knowing the rules and how they interact. But because there's so many different nationalities and scenarios and troop types, and then of course the maps you're playing on, that all kind of, you put all those together for that one particular game. I haven't explored it enough to say, okay, on this map, I'm definitely going to need to do this, and this, or, this is one I'm going to have to get in close. I've still got a lot to go in that game for sure.
Yeah. And it's funny because both of our number fives, you had Power Grid and my number 5 is Fury of Dracula. I don't think I want to go back and revisit Fury of Dracula. I like the idea of Fury of Dracula. It's the one versus many hidden movement type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me that now it's too long. I have played games that give you the same type of feel that are much shorter. That right. Kind of, why would I go back to Fury of Dracula?
Right. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up this episode. I think we postponed this Ask the Chef question now a couple of times, but the wind's starting to pick up. My laptop screen is blowing back and forth, which I'm sure is going to make some people nauseous if they watch this video. The wind is messing up my thin, wispy hair to the point that I need to comb it. And quite frankly, the right side of my face, I think I need an ice pack. I definitely am going to have a sunburn, I think, on this side of my face. So if you want to see the progression of my burning, tune into the video. If not, just watch the podcast. But I think I'm at least medium rare at this point in time. So, and if you want to reach out to us, maybe you've got some games that you've mastered and you want to share that you've mastered them, let us know. If you maybe, and if you want to join in for a podcast episode and share your 5 games that you want to master, we can discuss that as well. Reach out to us on email. You can email us at boardgamebuffetpodcast@gmail.com, Twitter at Board Game Chats, or the Facebook page, Board Game Buffet Podcast.
So say check out our Patreon page. Whenever we publish new videos, we post them there. Anything that's open to the general public, like our wargaming series, our catch-up series, or this podcast will be posted there. And then we do have some patron-only things as well. So if you just want to see what we're doing, it's a good place to see what gets posted, whether you're a patron or not. At least that's the place to go to. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. It's BG Buffet, Board Game Buffet. Look up Board Game Buffet on YouTube and you'll find our
Board Game Buffet.
Yeah, I think it's Board Game Buffet.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Episode 93 is a wrap. As always, please take care of yourselves and your loved ones.
Yeah, we're getting close to 100. That'll be.
I know. Yeah, we'll stop at 99.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Okay.
See ya.
See ya.